Another way to look at that, my reptilian brother Dan. Dan, look at me, Dan. Dan, what I'm trying to tell you here is you can get the serotonin dip doing it just the way you want to. They're not wrong in the manufacturing model to do it, but they screw up the ball wave on what's going down, Atom Smasher. When we look at it, that there's going to be somebody relative that's supposed to pick up on that node to node inside of there. I need that scorpion thing to be maybe right now reptilian, half I into that, because that's I hat and J hat, right? Even amongst it, there's people, me and Salty Dog over there, me being a beta, not pushed up, probably not running like airborne. Just in that set alone, you get that and or high and low cycle that says time tells me that, well, he's time up and down, right? Or she, whatever it is going to start pulling that out. But when that's a beta, betas usually have a lower population but a higher density lower population. It's like a throw between the mechanic when the atoms smash, or whichever way you can arguably set up that frame, cork to supermassive Oort cloud of particle density differences that say that the cosmic scale of the UV ultraviolet crisis will do certain things under symmetry. Atoms have an accretion disk. Well, atoms don't really have an accretion disk. They have an Oort cloud like that, but we have to play the math Gaussian, right? So that puts us all up in the snowflake, waiting for the operating system, catching it in this form and picking up on it, changing whatever form by scale, changes those metrics. But whichever way that's going down, uniformly speaking, into that model, it technically describes a state I hat to J hat of fission and fusion or some combination in the qubits of why it is that way. But when we're looking at something, I'm technologically going against other astrologists while trying to drive Parker, the one around our sun over there somewhere, is doing laps. That seems to work. However, that's doing, and that'll be the first thing I have to pick up on. That is working to the butterfly spectrum of solar flares every 11 years, sun flip, and the overall DMA that comes into that metrics. Now, if I take that thesis like Tabby Star, I'm kind of missing the purpose of reallocating it into another form, like A in lowercase a or B, against hydrogen. Now, technically speaking, the measure thesis does that, but we'll need to do some physics and changing the constant over, because it can't be the same constant. And even if it is it a parallel where they're equal in terms of the charge, where that comes down to turn around, Aang over here with the airbender. If you've seen some of that stuff, the cartoon, you're not going to tap him on the forehead about taking away your firebending skills and make you a waterbender and drown you. I mean, and that's some kind of joke. I don't know what culture does it or how they move it. The Tyrant, the Fearless over there, well, that's kind of a momentum. And if we needed that fleet on 1-1 to drive that type of energy wave solar flare into it, because that's the type of standard deviation on that population that I'm looking for. And certainly with the 20 and done to consider, I want their security forces and I want their Masons, especially if I find out that other than real close equal, we were both smashed, some level of 80-20, 10-9. Well, I will figure out what that looks like, about what that'll start actually operating to a more precise number. But in that standard, their airbender, it's still an operating wave function that says it's gonna 8 to 10 billion, 10 to 8 or 10 to 8 billion is kind of like the eye of the dragon. Very blue type on this side, educational standards, because we're trying to get our way back up on it. That might be tens of years on our cycles. And galactically speaking, I would consider our clock, do the meters per second, meters per feet with you, and then I'd tell you, well, roughly by the orbitals of that, when you're growing in periods, well, kids grow in periods too, but they grow in periods of Earth years around this mod once, and that is to define one. It's 365 days over one, so you do the math, and that'll get you on something else. And it doesn't matter realistically, it gets more complicated. There will be more to be geometrically correct to the mods and measure theory, whatever symbols they may represent, is kind of what I would be looking at an alien civilization. They could start from the middle, because that's the way the science does, and it would be hard to crack it at first. And it would be hard to crack it out this way, but once you get that quantum mechanics going about why it operates some way, there will be their technology, there will be this technology, and there will be some way why that collides in certain probability functions or time frequency domains that say, well, you're supposed to advance the technology on that. If I put you in that little snowflake for a while and make you study it, well, maybe we'll get more butterfly spectrums of those coronal ejections. Here on Earth, it may be some other form of it. Humans might even have their own variation on why that signal independently as a bright line spectrum, even though it may look like the solar system or the solar cycle with 11 years on that type of scale, I hat to J hat, 0 to 1, with any variables with inside of it. Maybe there's a quadrant 3, 2, half. For sure, that would be inside of there before the chorus changes over. Or, and that helps you with that uniform temperature or whichever wave function variable you had with that might specify why you overlay all those with the Fourier transformation and the Laplacian or Laplace transformation. Taylor is what I'm looking for in there. But again, that'll bring us back to that Microsoft operating system. Now, technically speaking, I know how to do that math. And I also know how to do some board factory stuff, work some gang saws. I'll manufacture you a tank. I'll even get the micrometer out. But what will actually happen inside of there, given the honing of the earth to the machinery, or me independently doing that to the position roughly in its epsilon or golden ratio at the size of a thing, is going to zoom me way down into a very specific space where that specific number makes me God against any galactic federation government or something that needed a First Amendment that bullet factory, right? I got potassium nitrate, charcoal, and sulfur, and I needed that right now for it. There were large amounts and proportions, which gave me an indicator. Now, independently, as long as the bullet factory down the range was doing something and all the paperwork, I'm getting brass cylinders and firing pin, or charge pin. What are they? Primers? The primer. I'm buying all those. The wave function is good. Basically, I could put out how many atoms are coming out of here given the bullets. And while I might lose one of them, maybe it just got clipped in the mint press. Brownian mechanics and air acoustic flutter dropping Einstein out of solution over there. And, it doesn't matter what galactic federation you're dealing with.